Okay, hello everyone who wasn't in this hall. I'm Leonard, I'm looking after this hall, and please close the doors. Let's start our new topics. How was the lunch? Who liked it? Please raise the hand. Great. Yeah. Fast feedback, about 50% liked that. Okay, so thank you, Tomasz. You came to share the knowledge, and let's start your topic.
Thank you. Okay. So I assume this is working. How do we start this one? Okay, we're good. So really appreciate you came here after the lunch. If you have a choice between this session and taking a nap, and you still choose the session, especially those people standing, because it will be harder for you guys to fall asleep. At least harder without other people noticing. So let me tell you my story. And this is not my first time in Vilnius. This is the second time. This first time was like many years ago. I think it was either the end of the previous century or the very beginning of this one. And I was really expecting to be a developer to the end of my life, which didn't happen. So after a while of working as a developer, someone noticed that I could be a manager, and thanks to that decision, I'm not writing any code anymore. So there's a lot of life being saved by that decision by now. And I've been promoted to project management. I went through the very traditional approach to software development. I went to see also what is this Agile stuff. And interesting thing, we noticed that some of these things work, some of them don't. So we try using the different ideas. We try experimenting with different ideas, and we come up with better and better process. This is how we work several years ago. Now, what I notice is that after a while, when I start talking about Agile, teaching about Scrum and helping organization, there are more and more people coming as a Scrum Master or as a manager with the very simple solution for everything. So, for example, you're going to have a stand-up every day. You're going to deliver every 2 weeks. You're going to have a Jira. You're going to have something else. And the moment people start asking why, there is one right answer. Because Scrum guys say so. How many of you have heard this one before? Yeah. How many of you? No, I'm not going to ask how many of you have said that before, because we're not gonna check this one. Anyway, and the reason for that is that the way we learn Scrum. So we're going to get to that in a second. But there are 3 reactions you can get when you come to your team and you say, you're going to do this because the Scrum guy says so. And one of the reactions you can get, and the best reaction you can get, is basically the team is going to ignore you. I know it sounds a little scary because, you know, as a Scrum Master, I failed. But if you come to your team and say, because Scrum guy says so, and they ignore you, you just make your life more difficult, but not their life more difficult. So that's pretty cool that they're not going to hate Scrum. They just hate you right now. So the second thing that can happen is they're going to do what you told them because you're a manager, because you're forcing them, whatever is happening. So they're going to do what you told them without having an idea what we're doing this one. And what you get is basically something I called mechanical Scrum or the zombie Scrum. And this looks like this way. Yesterday, I eat brains. Today, I will be eating brains, no impediments. Or if you want, yesterday, I work on my task. Today, I will be working on my task, no impediments. Or yesterday, I work on item 1756. Today, I will be working on item 1754, no impediments. And we have Scrum. Oh, you've been there, or you see this one. So we get very mechanical. We do Scrum, but we have no idea why we do the Scrum. The worst thing that can happen, you go to your manager, you go to your bosses, you go to your customer and say, okay, we want to do this way because the Scrum guide says so. You might find yourself looking for another job opportunity outside your company after this one. So that is not explanation, that is not something you need to go to your team, to your manager, to your customer. There must be some reason for doing anything in Scrum, and this is what we're going to look for. So before we get there, let's start with a very, very simple question. What is Scrum anyway? So I don't want to get into the definition, and I don't want you to quote me the 16 pages, oh sorry, 17 pages of the Scrum Guide, but let's just hear a few buzzwords you have heard about with Scrum. So what comes to your mind when you hear Scrum? Now it's time to you talk. Sprints, okay, anything else? Stand-ups, anything else? Commitment, okay, anything else? I'm sorry? Okay, roles, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, we have 3 roles, yes. How many of you hear Jira when I say Scrum? Oh my God. Okay, how many of you think about the user story when I say Scrum? Okay, cool. So we get a lot of words coming to the Scrum when we think about the Scrum. And one of the things I use to explaining what Scrum is kind of onion. So we're gonna get into this onion, and here's how it works. So the very, very first part of onion is values. So there are 5 values. They recently just made up back to Scrum Guide. So we have 5 values in Scrum Guide. Anyone remember those 5? Okay, good. So this is the quest for you. I'm not gonna tell them right now, but this is the quest for you. Look for the Scrum values now or after the conference or after this talk. Because this is important. If you don't care about the values, most likely what you're going to get is just the people copying the behaviors, like having the zombie stand-ups or whatever else. We do this because it is in the Scrum Guide, but we have no idea. So there is a courage in Scrum Value, there is a focus in Scrum Value, there is openness. Without those Scrum values, you're not gonna get much out of Scrum. Now, the next thing is some principles. So this is what this talk is about, is why we do some stuff in Scrum. Why do we have stand-ups? Why do we want to have a Scrum Master, by the way? It's a very good question, right? If you go to your manager and you need to explain him that you want to be a Scrum Master, you need to explain why he's going to pay you. And most likely you say, I'm going to schedule the meeting for my team, then your salary might be too high for that. So there must be more to being Scrum Master, just being 15 minutes every stand-ups, right, every day. So you need to explain why. Now, there is one interesting thing I noticed for the principles is that we mostly not codify them. As for some reason, the Scrum community did not come up with the specific guidelines of the specific principles. So we have some of them in the Scrum Guide somewhere. For example, we have 3 pillars, which is transparency, inspection, and adoption. But we don't talk much about them in formally. So I haven't seen Ken, I haven't seen Jeff talking about those items. Now, based on the why, we have what. So that is a framework, basically. So you can find a Scrum Master here. You can find Product Owner here. Oh, there are more coming. So if you're making a picture, just wait for 2 more. There is a daily Scrum, by the way. It's not a stand-up, it's daily Scrum. Oh, there is a sprint into that, right? Very, very small number of items into the framework. We have 3 roles, few events, 3 artifacts, some agreements. That's it. That's the whole Scrum, 16 pages. Now, what we notice is that the Scrum is a very minimal framework, so you're going to add different practices to this one. So if you just have Scrum, it's just going to give you a feedback, but it's not going to solve your problem. So we're coming with the good practices. So for example, user story we mentioned, it's not Scrum, it's a good practice. Continuous integration, not Scrum, good practice. Definition of ready, by the way, not Scrum, a good practice. And so on and so on. Now, what we also notice is there are some things that do not work in most of the contexts, and now you can make a picture. By the way, this is in article, so you can later on go into the article so that you don't need to. But you can also make a picture with me, by the way. Anyway, we get a bad practice. So something we notice is not working pretty well. So for example, distributed team is a bad practice. But still, many of you are working in the distributed teams because we have this specific context. Or maybe fixed scope of the project is a bad practice. But still, we have a customer who want to have a fixed scope, so we're working with them, we're using Scrum with the fixed scope. Or whatever. By the way, the project management is a bad practice for software development, but we still use it. Or Jira is just a bad practice, and we still use it, right? So we notice some of these things are bad practices, and in your specific context, it can work, but it doesn't have to. So what we want to do in Scrum is basically, okay, you come up with whys based on the values, you do a basic framework, and you add a good practices and try and experiment with this one. Now, most of the teams know about some of the good practice, so they know a lot of bad practices, by the way, and a bit of framework. But as you see, we don't know much about the values, we don't know much about the principles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you my version of principles. This is not the right version of the principles, and this is something evolving. So the next time we're going to see each other on the different conference, they're going to be different principles. But it's something I'm trying to build and make it useful for you guys to understand why we're doing some stuff in Scrum and why we don't do some stuff in Scrum. One notice here, Scrum is Agile, which means that if you look into the Agile manifesto, something I hope you have seen before, there are values and there are principles. So all the values and all the principles, if you're doing software development, are also valid in Scrum. For some reason, I recently seen Agile Scrum, which would suggest that there is non-Agile Scrum as well. The only one that comes to me is from rugby. I'm not sure if that was in mind. So basically, Scrum is Agile. So you need to have those values, and you need to have those 12 principles. So for example, one of the principles, Agile principles, is customer working with the business people daily, which means that you need to have your team working with your users daily. Not every 2 years, not every review, but you need to talk with those guys as often as possible, which means that you don't want to have a business analyst collecting your requirements and giving it to the team, because the team is not working with the users. By the way, the moment we go Agile, we don't have a business analyst, we have now Agile business analyst, and we have solved the problem, right? So you don't want to do that. You still want to keep to the Agile manifesto, you want still to keep to those values and those principles. So my set of principles, Scrum principles, are this one I find very important from Scrum perspective, and not being here in the Agile manifesto. It's really good to review this from time to time and see and discover a lot of interesting things in the Agile manifesto, by the way. For example, how do we do architecture? Anyone with having an Agile architect in the organization? Oh, that's cool. A few people. Okay, so have a look at the Agile manifesto and figure out where's the architecture coming from. So I have 10 principles. This is the version for today, and that's going to be involved. The very first one principle is increment, or being able to deliver working product every short cycle, and the short cycle is a month or less. Now, what does it mean? This means that it's going to change a really lot of things in your organization. The moment you expect your teams to deliver every cycle, there's going to be a huge difference in your organization. First of all, you're going to deliver something, so there's a value. Now, if I'm the business owner or the company owner, I really would like to know when I get something from the team. If I have too much money, then I'm fine spending like 2 years, 5 teams or 10 teams doing nothing, and after 2 years learning that you have not delivered or you have delivered something I don't need. I would rather have this knowledge after 2 weeks if I don't have enough money. So first of all, I get product, I get value. Then from the increment, I get the feedback so I can change the direction. Then if we deliver every 2 weeks, then we build the trust, and so on, so on, so on. So there's a lot of things happening, and we see this over and over and over again with different organizations when they start using Scrum. And even if we have a part of the organization doing Scrum for 2 years, and we start, for example, working with the management, and for the leadership team, we create a Scrum. So every 2 weeks, we deliver some of the value from the manager's perspective. And what I see is that it is the last day before the review, and I talk with the chief officer of the IT department, and he said, "Oh my God, I had to wake up 6 a.m. to finish what I have on my board." So like, I need to do it because there is a pressure to deliver and show results every 2 weeks. And now, if there is a pressure to deliver every 2 weeks, then at the very beginning of those 2 weeks, you need to figure out what you're going to deliver, right? And if you're going to figure out what you're going to deliver, then you need to do some planning. That's why we do the planning, because we want to show something at the end. So I'd rather want to know what I'm going to show. And if I plan something, then every day I need to make sure that the plan makes sense. So every day I'm going to meet with other people working on the same plan, and we're going to talk about the plan if it still makes sense. And that is how we come up with the daily stand-ups, right? So the daily stand-ups are not for having a report, but making sure that the plan is still realistic. And if it's not realistic, then make sure that you change the plan. So that's an increment. There is one more story for the increment. And this is really, really personal story, because we are right now rewriting our website, my company website, which was very pretty simple task. We're just going to change the design, or the GUI, in fact. So we said, okay, it's like a month of work. It's going to be super simple. We have most of the mockups. We're just going to move the old page to the new page. Super simple. And 2 months later, we discovered that nothing is on production. Most of the work is in progress. There are 5 product owners trying to have their version on the production, and we have nothing done. So what we start doing a 1-week iteration, and it was a little scary for us because we had to select one person responsible for that, product owner. Well, we had to tell the team that they're going to deliver every week. That was really scary for them, and we had to divide our website to small pieces. So if you go for now for our website on Polish version, you have a part of the website on the new GUI and the part of the website on the old GUI, because we're adding a new page and new page and new page every week. And we also fail sometimes on that, but we learn on that. Okay, so that's number 1. And this is the most important principle. So if you want to do just one, this is the first one, the most important one. You can fall asleep right now after this one. Okay, so next is the context, which means basically that your context will be different, and we cannot have a process that suits all possible contexts. So Scrum needs to be very, very minimal framework for you guys to understand your context and to adapt to your context. So we cannot come up with the 50 pages of documentation how you're going to do your work, because we have no idea about your context. We're going to give you just a very simple tool so you can understand how your process is working, which basically means that you can use Scrum in any specific context. So you can use Scrum in IT, we do it, right? But we start doing Scrum in hardware. So the hardware team deliver working product every month, or less than that. And we try doing this with management, and we try doing this with sales, and we try doing this with the support team. And you know what? In specific contexts, the good practices are good practices. For example, continuous integration is awesome practice when you're doing IT, right? You need to integrate continuously, otherwise you're going to know that your software is not working. If you integrate every 2 weeks and you have 2 weeks sprint, then that's not gonna work for you, certainly. But if you're doing Scrum in sales, then continuous integration is not so important for you. So there are some practices that works for you pretty well, and there are some practices that doesn't work for you too good. Sorry about that. Okay. Number 3 is a transparency. So something I mentioned already, this is one of the pillars. And basically it says, okay, it's cheaper for us to make sure that we have a transparency than trying to control. Because what most management trying to do is a control. So we have those daily synchronization meeting, reporting, all this stuff. What we notice is that if we make everything transparent, then you don't need to control. So for example, we put a backlog on the wall. So I was working with one of the product owners, and we have a discussion about the backlog, and he said, okay, we have 400 items. Awesome backlog. And I said, okay, that's pretty cool. So how many you can deliver per sprint? And he said, like 20 of them per 2 weeks. And how many you can come up with during the sprint? So how many new ideas you have? He said, like, okay, 10 items are coming from the backlog, 10 items are new ideas. So I said, okay, so you get like 10 items from a backlog per sprint, 20 per month, which 400 items, it gives you like job security for the next 2 years. And that was like 60 people company. So the moment they discovered they have work planned for the next 2 years, what product owner did, he just removed 75% of his backlog. And yes, the people were yelling, but that was the transparency we get from Scrum. We show them that we're not going to deliver 75% of this backlog for sure. And the remaining part of the backlog is on the board in his room, divided by this iteration, this quarter, later, and you want to talk about the backlog, the doors are open. So this is the transparency he achieved. A friend of mine working with a large transformation in one of the company, telco company in Poland, he started drawing, every sprint he started drawing how many items they have finished and how many items they have discovered. And he was showing that those two lines will end up November. And they say, no, we're going to finish September because the deadline is September. And he was showing every 2 weeks that they're going to meet November. So by the August, they had like, a huge gap, and there was no way to say we're going to finish September. So basically, they end up in November with this work. So we have more and more of these examples. So the task board, the moment you put the task board on the wall, it gives you the transparency. Because the moment you open the door, you look at the task board, you know where you are. You never get this from any electronic tool, because I never seen developers going into the room, and the first thing they do, they check the board in Jira. But the moment you open the door, you see that you are in the huge problem, because your board is saying, okay, we're not going to make it. There is no way we can make it. I went to the company, a friend of mine invited me for the lunch, and we're walking around, he showed me one of the board, and I say, okay, this team has a huge problem with work in progress. And he said, why? Well, because I can see 40 items, and I don't think there were like 60 people working on those 40 items. If this team is like 6 people, and they have 40 items in progress, they have a huge problem with that. There are plenty of problems they have. And that is the transparency. I could say it even without seeing the team that they have a problem. Okay, moving forward. So number 4 is empiricism, or the assumption that you need to inspect and adapt regularly. And regularly means every day, every week, every sprint, every release. So, for example, the daily stand-ups for you guys are to inspect and adapt, to see if we are still in the right place. So I'm going to the daily stand-up of one of the team in Warsaw, and I'm observing the daily stand-up as an Agile coach, and it looks like this way. I work on these items, I will be working on these items, no impediments. And I was working on these items, and I will be working on this item, no impediments. And we have all the teams finish, they talk, and they go away. And I say, guys, I have a question. And by the way, it's Friday morning, and they have a review at 12, so to make a context better. So we have like 2 or 3 hours till the review. Guys, I have a question. Are you going to finish everything by 12? And they look like me like I'm from the different planet. Hell no. So what you're going to show on the review? And this is the moment they start having their daily Scrum. Because they say, okay, so I can work with you, and we could finish this one, and you guys could focus on testing this one, so at least we can show those 2 items to the customer. That's a huge change, inspection and adoption. Otherwise, most of the team, they say, okay, well, the plan is not realistic, we're not going to change this anyway. Or we have a customer, he see that his plan is not realistic. He look at the data, he know that we're not going to deliver by November or September, and he say, okay, we're going to deliver anyway. So you just ignore the data. We were working with another organization, now this time in Krakow, and we were creating a platform for the developers. And after a while, we decided to create a personas for this product. And when we start creating the persona, we just discovered that, hell no way, there's no person on the earth looking like our persona. So there is no one who can use this product. And we did a pivot. We decided to go into the different direction because we said, that's not gonna fly. We cannot find people who are going to use this product. But many times what I see is we have a data, we have a transparency, we inspect the data and say, okay, we ignore the data, we're going to go forward into that direction. All right, now the next step is self-organization, which basically means that we assume that the team know how to do it, and if the team doesn't know how to do it, they're going to learn how to do it. So they're going to select their tools, they're going to select their processes, they're going to select the way they work. And it's a very strong assumption. Because anytime they fail, you need to assume that they're going to find a way to make it better. Otherwise, you're going to have a manager coming in and say, oh, no, guys, this is not how you need to work, and you need to use this framework, and you need to do this one, and you need to do this one. So, just a few examples from this one is, for example, working with the Agile team, and we're planning a very short project, like 3 months, and they say, okay, we really would like to automate the tests. And the developer says, hell no, we don't have a time for that. Okay, so we won't automate the test. And this is, I'm asking the question, guys, what you can do about it? And there is a silence, and one of the testers say, well, I have some experience on test automatization, I could try. And the second tester say, I would like to learn too. And magically, they discover how they can solve the problem of having not enough people with the skills they can learn. So you need to assume that the people can learn and how to solve the problem, and you need to let them solve their own problems. The different story from the different team. Again, we have a conflict between the developers and the designer, really strong conflict, and the reason for that is that developers are mostly males, designer is a female, and males are really good at providing the feedback, isn't it, right? Especially IT males, we're known for that, so how empathy we are. So how good we are in this one. So they have a conflict because anytime the designer showed something, her child to the team, and the developer says, it's a bullshit, right? It's not the best way to provide the feedback, by the way, if you didn't notice this one. But they have a conflict. So we have a retro on that, and we say, okay, what we can do about it? And the designer said, just don't irritate other people. That's a good idea, but let's assume I'm an IT engineer with low understanding when I irritate other people. Let's just assume that. And I don't know when I irritate you. So what we can do about it? So anytime I feel irritated, I'm going to say stop. This is her proposal. I'm going to say stop, and we're going to finish the discussion, and we're going to come back later on. Sounds better for me because now I know when I irritate you. The thing is that stop sounds little arrogant for me. Can we come up with something different? And they come up with Pomodoro. Yep. So anytime you feel attacked, you say Pomodoro, and that's it. Now, imagine that the manager of this team can in say, guys, what I notice is that some of you are attacking other people, and anytime you feel attacked, you need to say Pomodoro, thank you. Not going to work this way. Okay, so number 6 is collaboration, which means that what we notice is that team is way more than just some of individuals. So it's take time to do the team. So anytime you change the team, you add people, remove the people, you need to build your team once again from the scratch. And a team is a group of individuals having one common goal. So I'm going to the organization, I'm having a conversation with the organization to say, okay, this is our team. And those 2 guys, they're working on the legacy product. And those 2 guys are working on our new product, and this guy is fixing bugs. So I said, no, so you got the 3 teams. No, we got 1 team. And those 2 guys say, okay, if this guy has too much work on his plate, are those 4 going to help him? No, because they're working on something else. So we have 3 teams. So anytime you have people with different focus, different roles, or different responsibilities in the team, the goal is different. So you don't have a team anymore in this case. So in Scrum, we want to have 1 team with 1 goal. So anytime you have a developers and the testers, then what's the goal for the testers? I don't know either. Find bugs, right? What is the goal for the developers? Make bugs, make code, right? So at the end, if you have developers and the tester, we're coming back to the end of the iteration, you get, okay, we're done. So guys, we're done. We go home, and you just need to finish the testing. So enjoy your weekend. Have a good evening, right? And we're coming to a review, and we say, oh, we did all the best, but the tester screwed up. Seriously, guys? You could do better. So now you need to have 1 team. Number 7 is a product owner. Oh, this is from me. Oh, thank you. That's a really great idea, so I don't need to open the bottle. Never thought about this one. So number 7 is the product owner. So what we discover is having 1 person deciding what is most important help us a match. Because many times I go into the organization, I have a number of people sitting around the room, around the table, and they say, okay, this is our team, and these are product owners. In one case, there were more guys here than here. Which one is the product owner? Oh, these guys are product owners because they have different needs. And then I started digging deeper because we have a product owners, but also we have 2 project managers. We have a support team, and we have other people, and we have more and more people in your organization. And if we have so many people, so we have like half of this group telling those 5 people what to do, who is going to decide what to work on next? Well, the CEO is here, between the product owner and your line manager, by the way. Oh, because between the 5 product owner and the line manager. So he's part of the people telling you what to do. So who is going to decide what those 5 people are going to work next? Themselves. Thank you. You've been in this situation. I see that. So what is happening, if I have 5 people or 10 people coming to me, I'm going to decide what I'm going to work next. And how I'm going to decide? Well, that depends. One of the methods is who sits closest, who yells loudest, who is paying my salary or who is giving rise. It's not a CEO usually. Who can fire me, who can buy a pizza, or the resume-driven development, what is the sexy technology I want to use now? And you don't have any prioritization there except for the developers deciding what they want to do. So what we have discovered is better to have 1 guy making sure what is next for 1 product. For 1 item in the organization, 1 product, you have 1 guy deciding what is next. Which means that this person is not going to write down user stories usually because he's busy making sure what is most important. Who is going to write down the user stories anyway? We've been there before. You fall asleep during this part. The team itself, and by the way, they're not going to write the user stories because the user stories are not about writing. They're going to tell the user story. So anytime you write user stories, not user story, and some of the Agile fairy die. You need to tell user stories. So you need to have a conversation with your user. It's the team who's going to work with the users to figure out what they need, not the product owner here. Product owner is going to prioritize this work. Now, many times we see 5 product owners on 1 team. I never seen 5 Scrum Master on 1 team for some serious reason. And anytime we have a conversation about some problems in the team, my first question is, where is Scrum Master? And guess what is most cases? We don't have one, thank you. Or we have a Scrum Master, but he's working with 7 teams. Or we have a Scrum Master, but he's also architects, tester, and the developers at the same time. On 3 teams, by the way. Oh, sorry, that was 4. So yeah, we don't have one. He's so secure, he don't have a time to address the problem. So I'm having a conversation recently with one of the companies, and he said, oh, you know, Tomek, we are a small company, so we have a Scrum team, but we don't have a Scrum Master. We cannot afford one. And few minutes later, he said to me, we have 2 projects that have huge problems. So after 3 months, we discovered that they haven't done much. And it's a 6 months project, and we're halfway through the project, and we still have UAT in front of us, so it's not halfway, we're mostly done. Showing that we are in the deep shadows. And, well, maybe if you have a Scrum Master there, that could be helpful for you. Maybe, yeah. So, again, the Scrum Master is someone who's going to observe the systems, is going to observe the team, who is looking at the product owner. This is what I see. So, for example, I see that you don't communicate with each other. I see that you're coming to the review, but you don't get any feedback. Or there is no one at the review, there is no stakeholders. This is the feedback I'm going to provide as a Scrum Master. This is the problem I'm going to show you as a Scrum Master. So we're coming to the 2 final one. This is like more like an addition that I find important for the Scrum. One is focus, so making sure that we limit work in progress, we set the time boxes, and we remove distractions so the team can focus on doing something. And this is one of the most important things in Scrum from how we work together. It's not much mentioned into the Scrum guide except for the time boxes, but the moment you have a time box of 2 weeks, and again, team in Bratislava, they usually deliver like 5 to 6 items per 2 weeks. And now they're planning the next sprint, and they have planned 10 items. Now, I'm telling them, guys, you have delivered 5 items previous sprint, and the 6 items the previous sprint. How could you deliver 10 items this sprint? And they say, oh, Tomek, you don't understand. This is going to be different. This sprint is going to be different. So we have a conversation as a Scrum Master, try to challenge their assumption, but they say, we want to go there. So as a Scrum Master, I'll let them fail so they can learn together. And they start trying to deliver 10 items. Question, if they're used to deliver 5 to 6 items, and they plan 10 items, how many items they have delivered? 2. You were close. So they delivered 2, 8 people, 2 weeks iteration, delivered 2 items. They went to review, and the review was really interesting because there was CEO of this organization on this meeting. And the very first sentence on the retrospective was, I think they want us to deliver. Interesting observation. Could be. So make sure that you focus on few items, and the limitation of the time boxes and the reduction of the items you work on just help you deliver some of the value. Because most of the organization, they focus on being busy. We need to make sure that the tester do something at the very beginning of the iteration. So let's test the next iteration so the testers are busy. It's not your goal. Your goal is to deliver value, not to make people busy. No customer is going to pay you for having people busy. Every customer is going to pay you or should pay you for delivering a value. All right, the last item is experiments. And again, I haven't seen this clearly the Scrum guide, but this is something really, really important for me for a Scrum team, because the moment you stop experimenting, you stop inspecting and adapting. So if your process is the same all the time, if your way of working is all the same all the time, then you know there's something wrong and you fail with the Scrum. And what I mean by experimenting is something you don't feel fully comfortable with. Because if all your experiments are successful, then you're not experimenting. So for example, we're going to change the yellow post-it notes to the pink post-it notes. That's not experiment much, right? Or we're going to stand on the one leg on the daily stand-up. Could be, but I don't think so. Experiment needs data. So you need to try different things and see what is going to happen. Just to give you an example, I was working with the sales team in Krakow, and we're we're having a first planning. So we're not quite sure how we're going to show those items. We're not quite sure how we're going to work together. And my first question was, write down all the things you do right now. And they create a huge amount of post-it notes with the different items they do. Now, I created a second board. I say, okay, guys, now move the items you have to do for the next 2 weeks to that board. And all the items goes from here to there. Everything was important. Everything was must-have. Start experimenting. We say, okay, let's try not doing all the calls during 2 weeks. So we're going to select the customer we're not going to call based on some of the data we have, and we're not going to call them, and we're going to see how it works. And we figure out that most of the calls were not necessary. We're calling the customer who are going to buy our products anyway. And by discovering more and having more experiments, some of them successful, some of them not successful, what we have discovered was that from 4 people, we are able to have 3 people completely different work. So they start selling different products. We come up with the different product in the same time. We have 3 people free to sell the new products. We have people free to do some other stuff. We have 1 person doing the previous job, just by experimenting. Again, it's about the limiting the work in progress, because many organizations, what they do when they have a problem, they add more work. So anytime we have a problem with something, there is a manager coming in and say, okay, we need to have a process to that, or we need to add something more. We need to do more of this one. We need to do more of the marketing. We need to do more of the sales. Now, the biggest challenge you have mostly in the organization is about what you need to do less, which is way more difficult, so you can focus. All right, so we get 10 of them, and for those who didn't make pictures, there was a link to the list of them, and I have few copies of this. So the first 20 people who won't kill me here, then they can grab the copy. Otherwise, you can just print it from their website. Just time for the pictures, if you want it with the presenter. We done? Minutes, so we can stay with the pictures part. So now, how I'm usually using this one, because that's nice, Tomek. That was really inspirational. What are we going to use this one? So the way I'm using this one usually is 3 simple questions. Okay, what is the biggest problem we have right now? Well, is there any one of those 10 principles violated, or one of the 12 Agile principles violated, right? So for example, oh, we don't have a Scrum Master. That could be a problem. What we can do about it? Well, maybe I can talk with the manager and show him that, okay, we have dysfunctional teams not working with each other for like 6 months by now. I have 6 people in this team, times half a year, that's 3 years of salary lost. Maybe I can convince my manager to get 1 Scrum Master team. That's just, suggestion, right? So I'm trying to look at what is the problem, which of those 10 items is violated, and what I can do about it. Because sometimes you cannot do this in your organization. That's different things, right? But maybe you can have a conversation with your manager and tell him why you want to have a Scrum Master, not because the Scrum guy said so. Because for the most manager, it's not going to work. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have 2 minutes left for some questions. Do we have any?
Can you share some failed experiments?
Failure experiment. Oh, I have plenty of stories of failure experiments.
1 minute left, so
yeah. So
too much.
It's giving like a beer story or something like that. So I would go this way. Anytime you do something and you figure out it's not working, just throw it away, right? So we try, for example, combining 2 teams and it doesn't work, so we divide those into two teams. Or we divide into 2 teams and we figure out it's not working the way we want to do. So again, we're trying to change the structure of the teams. The other thing is, the moment you call something experiments, people are usually more comfortable to work this way. So for example, we have a situation when I go to the team and I say, okay, you're using Jira, you have no idea what's the Jira. During the stand-up, you scroll all the times through the screen, so you have no idea what is your status every day. You just guess that one. How about you use the physical taskboard? No, Tomek, that's not going to work because of that, and that, right? So how about we do experiment for a month? For a month we can do it, right? So usually works better for the people. And some of the teams, they revert back to the Jira. Some of the teams stay with their physical board. It's kind of depend on the team. Does it answer the question? Okay, thank you.
Okay, some more questions. By speaking Jira, I remembered new word, bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy? I never heard this one. I like this
bureaucracy, only bureaucracy. So, yeah, you were speaking about Jira.
My question is also about Jira. Why is bad?
Oh, that's a long story. Short version, the transparency, it's not there. Sorry? So you don't see what is there, mostly. And for example, you can, if I have a backlog on the wall, it's really easy to see I have too big backlog. And if you have created 1,000 user stories into the Jira, no one noticed. So one of the trainers said, at Jira, a place their story goes to die. So, well, yeah, there are some problems regarding any electronic tools. I would rather have items on the walls because they are better visible. It's not about the Jira. The Jira is kind of most popular tool right now.
So my question is about commitment. Should the commitment of a team for finishing sprint should be enforced?
Thank you for asking this question, because this was something that was on the very first talk on the stage. So the commitment, if you find, by the way, who has 5 values by now? Yeah, we have one person. Thank you. Or 2 people. Okay. So the commitment is Scrum value. It means we commit, we want to do it. Now, think about the football team going to the field to play a game. Are they committed? Are they going to win? We have no idea, right? Because the second team is also committed, right? So there's a lot of things going to happen, and just by the commitment doesn't mean we are going to win. So the commitment is not forcing people, because the moment we force people, what is going to happen? Well, the quality goes low, we avoid transparency, sorry, that was already said. So we don't deliver working product, we do some of the nasty solution just to make it, just to show it to the customer. But by the way, don't touch this button because it's not working yet, right? So you go to the review, but you need to show to your customer how it works, because the moment customer try to go different path, it's not working. And you get the commitment from the team in this case. So you want to think about the commitment as the value.
Okay, that was the last question. So thank you, Tomasz.
Thanks.
Small gift from organizers. Thank you.
And